Let's read out of Matthew chapter 17, the Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and his brother John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became bright as light. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah, talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I will set up 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, my beloved, and in him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and don't be afraid." And when they raised their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about this vision until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The word of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Lord.
Well, hello, everybody, and happy Sunday. Greetings from Faith Avenue Church. We meet here at 11:30, and we're having the time of our life, so thank you for letting us cohabitate this building with you. We haven't broken too many things over the past 4 years, just a few, so thanks for your mercy on that, too. The story of the transfiguration that we just read today is so great, and today I want to pay attention to 2 particular words that come out of this story, and the words are wonder and focus. And I want to start with wonder. I have a tattoo in my left arm. You can't see it because I have a gob of clothes on. You Lutherans, you wear a lot more clothes than we do. So, but the tattoo says, "Live in awe and wonder." And it's something I try to live my life by because there are so many things in life that fill me with wonder, so many things in life that make me go, "Wow, that's amazing." Let me give you a few examples, and I'll connect this to the story. Just be patient. The first is quarks. For you physicists out there, quarks are small subatomic particles, but they seem to defy the laws of physics. A quark can appear in one place, disappear, and appear in another place without having traveled the distance in between. And it baffles scientists. And that makes me go, wow, at God's creation. The second thing, I also have another tattoo right below the first one of a giant manta ray on my arm. That's because one time I was in Hawaii on the Big Island near Kona, and I was swimming with some dolphins with my family. That was a great day, by the way. I was swimming with some dolphins just off the beach in Kona, and suddenly this kind of surfer dude, and I didn't know him at all, he got my attention. He goes, "Come over here." And I'm thinking, are you going to murder me? I don't know you, but I followed him over there because he was really excited about something. And we dove down, just held our breaths and dove down between 2 coral reefs. And in between the 2 coral reefs, there she was. Not a mermaid, don't worry. There she was, a manta ray called Big Bertha that is so huge, it's 14 feet in between its wingspans. It's not your normal manta ray. And it swims between the Hawaiian Islands. And seeing that filled me with so much wonder, I actually started to hyperventilate. I thought, I'm going to pass out here. I went up, got a breath, and went back down. And then she just flew away like an angel flying through the water. Thus, my unusual tattoo of a manta ray. My third source of wonder is 1 month ago, actually 5 weeks ago tomorrow, I became a grandpa. And I know, right? And you grandparents, we can't explain it to people. Having a kid was great. Having a grandson is otherworldly great. And his name's Oliver Allen Johnson. And we drive to Portland because his parents live in Portland. My son does, and my daughter-in-law. And we do what some people call recreational baby gazing. That's what you do when you have a grandkid. You just hold them and stare at them with a big fat grin on your face. And it fills you with so much wonder. But the moment I was filled with the most wonder is when we arrived there shortly after Oliver's birth, is watching my child pick up his child. I have no words to describe the wonder that filled my soul. This story we read today is full of awe and wonder. Please don't let your familiarity with it dull you to the awesomeness of this story. I mean, Jesus takes some friends to the top of a mountain. That's great enough. But then his face starts to shine like the sun. And then he has a little chat with two famous spiritual leaders that have been dead for a really long time. And then to top it off, the voice of God comes out of a cloud and speaks to these three young men. This is no ordinary event. If you were there that day on the Mount of Transfiguration, you probably would have either passed out or wet yourself, okay? Because it's that amazing of an event. Peter, James, and John would have been filled with awe and wonder for probably days and weeks after they came down this mountain. I love the Bible, which I guess is a good thing because, pastor, okay? But one of the reasons I love it is because it's full of stories like the one we read today, stories that remind us that we need to have time to slow down, to unplug, to stop being involved in the tyranny of urgent things in our life like Peter, James, and John did, and instead awaken to the presence of God who is with us and in us and all around us, a God who inhabits every moment, every place, every encounter we have. One of my favorite authors is also a surfer, and I went to a conference and got to meet him. It's fun to kind of meet your favorite authors. And he surfs a lot in Orange County, and he was telling us all a story of he was surfing just off the beach where we were having the conference from. That was a good day, too. To have a church conference in Laguna Beach, not bad, I discovered, okay? It beats like Denver, But no knock on Denver, but I mean, Laguna's nicer. And he said he was sitting next to this stranger in between surfing sets, just sitting on the ocean in their boards, looking at the beauty all around them. And for some reason, the guy opened up to him and started sharing how troubled his past was, and he struggled with addiction for a long period of his life. But then he got sober, and in the process, he collided into God. And then the guy was silent for a moment and just looked around. And then he said the most incredible thing. He says, "And now I see God everywhere." Oh, and I thought about this story, and I thought, when we slow down, when we unplug, when we awaken to the very real presence of God, we'll start to see God everywhere too, and it'll fill us with wonder. Second word I want to look at is the word focus. According to verse 8, after these three men heard the voice of God, they fell down in the dirt and they were terrified. They were really shaken. And Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid." And when they looked up, I love verse 8, it says, they saw no one except Jesus. This verse is about focus. Let me explain. On the mountaintop, Peter, James, and John saw Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. These were famous spiritual leaders. They would have been well acquainted with their words and their work and their lives. But Moses and Elijah represented the past, and Jesus represented the future, the new thing that God was doing in the world. So when verse 8 says they saw only Jesus, it was really a way to say, now Peter, James, and John had a future they could look forward to. They were no longer stuck in the past. I love it. Have you noticed how easy it is for all of us to get stuck in the past like these three men did? First of all, I think we get stuck in the past because we tend to view the past through rose-colored glasses. The past seems so bright and wonderful. The good old days, that's what we even call them. But that's because we're using the magic of selective memory when we do that, because the good old days weren't really as good as we remember them, if you think more closely about them. Let's take the generation that I grew up in, the 1970s, okay? That's when I entered middle school and high school. There was some really great stuff about the 70s. Most of you lived through the 70s. It was so great. We had super good music. Def Leppard, Boston, REO Speedwagon, come on, the list goes on. We had super good music, and we had cheap gas. You didn't have to take out a second mortgage to fill your tank with gas. Gas was 50 cents a gallon when I learned to drive in the 70s. It was so great. But there were some not so great things about the 70s that you probably forgot about. But let me remind you, okay? Playground equipment was made of metal. metal. So when you were a little kid and you went down the slide, the shiny metal slide on a hot day, you left a trail of melted skin behind you. It just made you scream. It was awful. And then no seat belts in cars. Well, they had them. Nobody wore them. My only seatbelt was my mom slapping her arm on my side, okay? That was it. It was terrible. And we rode in the back of trucks for miles. When I went camping, we drove from Klamath Falls to California, and I rode in the back of the truck on a Barkle lounger that you would use out on your porch, okay? No seatbelts or anything. And then our clothes. Just for those of you that didn't go through the 70s, Google 1970s clothing, and you'll instantly think, what were you thinking wearing that stuff? All right? The second reason we get stuck in the past, though, has to do with fear. The past feels so safe because the past is predictable and it's known. To live in the past gets boring really quick, but it does feel safe, I have to admit. The future is completely different. The future involves change. It's unpredictable, so it freaks a lot of people out. This is so true, especially in the time we're living right now. So many people I talk to right now, if you talk to them about what are your thoughts about the future, their thoughts are filled with fear. They're freaked out about the future. To them, the future looks so bleak, like we're all going to be involved in some giant Mad Max movie, this dystopian nightmare where anarchy reigns and people don't shower and things go from bad to worse. You know those kind of movies. I don't have that view of the future, and I never have had that view of the future because our God, the God that we worship today, is the God of the past, the present, and the future. So I don't dread the future because God is already there, and wherever God is, something good is happening. So I look forward to the future. And here's the fun part. When we pray the Lord's Prayer, we pray these words, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." How great is that? God is bringing heaven to earth. God is everything, all our life in the universe heading somewhere good, and we can trust in that. And it gets even better. God evidently wants us to partner with God in the process. We get to participate in putting all the broken pieces of this world and people's lives back together again. We get to bring heaven to earth. One act of love, one act of generosity, one encouraging word, and one whispered prayer at a time. The Christian faith has never been oriented towards the past. Some churches try to make it so, but it's never been that. The Christian faith has always been oriented towards the future that God is actively bringing about. So just like the Apostle Paul, we can let go of the past and strain towards the future, which I'm sure Peter, James, and John did when they got down the mountain. They realized Jesus is where my focus is, and he's doing something new, and I want to be involved in it. If you want to get excited about moving out of the past and into the future, speaking of the 1970s, listen to the song Rolling with the Changes by REO Speedwagon. Loud enough so it shakes your sternum like we did in the 1970s. Because it's about one person asking another person, are you tired of living in the past? If so, turn some pages and roll with the changes. Just like Peter, James, and John did as they were part of establishing the new church, the new faith communities that God was setting up in the world. So, there you go. That's the transfiguration. Thank you so much. Am I supposed to do something else right now? No? Okay.
Thank you, Pastor Tim. I invite you all to stand as you are able for our hymn of the day.